If you haven't listened to an episode of Friends with Death Benefits, you are in for a treat if this is your first time. We have a special guest, Yolanda, in the studio tonight, and she is sharing a powerful story of childhood trauma, neglect, abandonment, and inevitably the loss of the person who did that to her. Tune in, sit back, and listen to Yolanda's story. Hey guys, welcome to the show. Justin's looking over some delicious candies.
Tiff brought me gifts.
I brought it
from her travels.
Yes, but it was like some time ago, so it may be old. I brought him some candies.
It might have been old when you bought it.
It definitely looked like a store that had some old ass candy.
It's like the 80s Nestle logo on this thing.
It is the 80s. Yes. Yeah. They had some crazy looking stuff. They had like old vintagey candies, you know, like
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So you'll have to let me know.
Reminds me of a simpler time, you know, when my mom was alive.
Oh shit. We're gonna come out of the gate with that.
That would just seem like the thing to do.
Just seemed good. Seemed good. How's the week been? You been watching the Olympics?
Not a ton, a little bit.
Yeah. Do you get into that?
I mean, I always tell myself I'm going to think about it, and then I don't. You know what I mean? Especially this year is weird because it's like the time's flipped. This morning I woke up, and they're like, we're just finishing the day up here over in Tokyo. And it's just like, oh, that's weird. But
yeah,
I just had a crazy weekend. We did, not even probably, we did our longest, as far as miles goes, weekend we've done since we started doing comedy.
Cool. Were you handsomely compensated for your travels?
Handsomely enough.
Okay.
We were in northern Wisconsin on Saturday night, like way up by the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and then we were in Sioux Falls, South Dakota on Sunday night, and we got our first horrible review. It was meant to be. It was meant to be horrible.
Okay, explain it.
So on Facebook, when you have like a page for a business or something, they can recommend or not recommend you. And this guy and his wife, who I remember seeing them, and I thought they laughed, but maybe they didn't. And
maybe it was an uncomfortable laugh.
Maybe,
okay.
But
Shudder?
They stayed for the whole show.
Oh.
And the second I remember, because the second the show ended, and I thanked everybody and said goodnight, they got up and bolted real fast. And then the next afternoon, we had this review of what they thought of the show, which they weren't fans.
Right.
And what made me think is it was 18 hours later. So they went home, the ride home was I can't believe this. And they went to bed, and the next day they're like, no, this just isn't right. We've got to do so. They had brunch, on Sunday morning, and they're just like,
Karen, proofread
we've
this.
got to do,
we've got to do something about
They got through their
these
scripture
heathens.
readings, and they realized, you know what? They tried to cancel us, but they don't realize is that it was the opposite effect.
Yeah.
For comedians like us. It was it's like winning a gold medal in the Olympics. It was
Yeah.
I shared it. I sent it to every comedian friend I have, and they're all like, lucky. Because it's just it's so great. Should I read it?
Yeah.
I mean, I have it screenshotted on my phone.
So here's a couple questions I would have for Andrew and Karen, we'll say. At what point in the show did you decide that you were in the wrong place?
Yeah.
Because I've seen your sets. I've seen the comedians. I've seen the lot you travel with. It's about 45 seconds in that you're like, this is going to be rough.
I don't like to tease people.
And great. No. So, yeah, at what point did you realize that this is not Jim Gaffigan?
Yeah, and that's the thing is I've seen Comedy Central comedians that are far dirtier than I am.
Yeah, it's
or
really
Jay.
not that filthy.
No, it's not that crazy. We talk about stuff that people do with parts they have, you know?
Yeah, it's basic human science.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it really is it's a learning experience, really.
Okay, read the review.
Okay, so this is this dude from northern Wisconsin. This is what he thought. First off, he doesn't recommend us. That's
0
the
stars.
topic. He says, I would give them a 0. The best thing that happened when we saw these guys is that all 3 couples that we invited to join us couldn't make it. Weird that none of their friends wanted to hang out with them. The total audience was like a dozen people. These guys couldn't get their act out of the gutter from every extreme of filth. Every single one of them.
Butt stuff even.
The reactions from every woman and most men in the crowd was these guys should be locked up.
Whoa.
Yeah. I, for the sake of having class and a sense of decency, won't publicly repeat the filth these guys say. Yeah, because it'd be copyright infringement. Those are my jokes. You don't get to say them. If you ever have a chance to see them, do yourself a favor and pass. If I knew they were going to be even close to this raunchy, and he spelled new N-E-W, so it doesn't have that much class. But if I knew they were going to be even close to this raunchy, we would have never seen their show.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so the comedy festival that you had in Clear Lake, Surf District, was awesome. Great turnout, loaded comics. There were some people there that I knew or am associated with that I knew were very, what do I want to say, clean comedy type people, good classic family fun types.
Sure.
And they came to the show, probably not really knowing what to expect. I mean, one of the couples did kind of know, at least half of them, because they do listen to the show, so they know kind of what you're about. But they sat through the show. I could tell that they were uncomfortable. I watched them.
Yeah.
I watched them watching you.
Yes.
And I could tell that they were uncomfortable. But I think the thing that happens when that happens is like, I won't ever see them again. That's not for me. It's like when you go see a movie and you're just like, oh God, I wouldn't see it again.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't.
And that's okay.
Yeah, that's totally okay.
That's okay.
But like to write a bad review or to like just get on there and be, high and mighty.
To just assume that everyone else in the world has the same opinion
Yeah.
and a sense of humor as you, and for you to think that you're anyone that should be recommending anything to anybody at all.
That's what I think is so interesting about comedy is that like what tickles me may not tickle you, and what makes me laugh certainly doesn't make Kyle laugh,
Right.
But yeah, I find that really interesting. And also, do you think that they didn't get up in the middle of the show because they were afraid, as we all are at comedy shows, like if we get up and try to leave, use the bathroom, whatever, that we're going to get ripped up? Do you think that they just endured it and it was like the most painful experience of their life because they were afraid you were going to make fun of them?
Maybe. Because, I mean, if you're that square, like if you blush at like, PBS Kids like this guy probably does, like I imagine some of the stuff, you're like you said, I don't waste any time.
No. Yeah.
You want to know? You imagine like joke one, he's probably like, uh-oh. And then I did like 40 minutes of that.
Yeah.
And then
like
I did
heavy hitters.
Yeah. And then Jake did like 45 minutes of all his
good stuff.
Yeah. And so, I imagine they were just, I don't know. Was it him? Was it her? Was it both of them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a collective effort. That was written and articulated.
I'd like to send him a gift basket.
You should. What would you put in it?
Oh man, I'd have to find out what he likes. It's because
we know he doesn't like filth.
Yeah, it ain't us.
Yeah, maybe some scented soaps and a dictionary,
perhaps. But
thesaurus.
we saw. I mean, it was an interesting weekend. We saw a carnival. The carnivals. Like the county fair type carnivals. Those like apples that spin around.
Yeah.
Someone was hauling one of those on a pickup truck with a trailer, and the trailer's tires were on the rims, sparking.
Oh, that's amazing.
And they were going full 65
Only in
down
the
Midwest
Midwest would you see that shit.
And then we saw 20 Hells Angels from New York, all wearing their vests with their patches.
Wow, that had to have been a pretty cool
They're going
thing.
like 85. And I was just driving, and like all of a sudden I hear, there's a motorcycle coming. And then just all in formation, like 2 rows of 10 of them.
That's cool.
And I was going like 5 over, and they were gone. And I go, Jake, I was like, man, they're going really fast. He's like, yeah, would you pull them over? And I'm like, no. I suppose I wouldn't.
No, it would not.
I suppose I would not. I would leave that alone. Could get a little stabby, perhaps.
Yeah.
But,
there's something really cool about that sort of.
It's fascinating. They're like they're like outlaws. They're like the last.
It's a cult. It's culty, and I'm fascinated with cults.
It's kind of it touches a lot of nerves for the culty. It's like outlaws.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. It's old.
Yeah.
It goes way back.
Yeah. It's kind of tough.
Yeah. I wonder if they're sensitive though. Like
some of them.
in their brotherhood, like if they sit around and
like they'll take you out if they got to, but like
but they'll also cry with you because they're your brothers.
And they like buy teddy bears for kids at Christmas.
Yes, they're do-gooders. They're also do-badders. They do a lot of bad shit too.
And that's fine.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm not judging. I don't care. And also, how can I get in the club?
Right. Yeah. We're going to look into that. We're going to do some Googling. Okay. We talked last week about you were going camping with Claire. Things have been a little wild with Claire. And how'd that go?
It was good. It was good. It was exactly what we needed. We had a couple hiccups in the in the first day, but it was good. I mean, we slept under the stars. The weather was perfect. We swam. We roughhoused. We rode bike for like 20 miles. Ate ice cream for breakfast. I mean, I was like, yes, it was good.
Good.
So yeah, it was a good respite of just her and I time.
Sure.
And I can tell it's reset the tone a little bit. I don't know how long that will last, but yeah, it was really good.
Good. I'm glad. I was hoping for that.
Yeah. Full transparency, about 20 miles from home, it just came all flooding back though. Not like her, but just like, it's just like this reality thing where it's like, oh, okay, shoot, I forgot about this big thing.
Tricked myself for a little bit,
but it's fine. Distractions are good. I think I probably need more of that right now.
Probably.
Yeah. It's been a rough couple days. I'm having a lot of anger right now. And we'll talk about that at another point, but we have somebody here that is new in this journey, and I'm really excited to have her on the show. I met this person around the same time that you and I started kind of hanging, during the protests, George Floyd protests, and our lives have sort of intersected over time. We don't really know how but we knew when we saw each other that we knew each other somehow. So I would like to introduce all of you to my friend Yolanda.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for coming tonight. So Yolanda has an interesting story. She's very fresh into this, 3 months in, and she lost her mom on St. Patrick's Day. And her story is unique in its own way. And I can't wait to kind of unpack that a little bit. And I'm not gonna tell the story for you. So I'll let you in your own words kind of tell us about who you are, what your relationship was like with your mom, and then we'll kind of just see where it goes. We might take a little head-on collision here and there, but just I'm fully prepared. So
well, that where do I begin?
Yeah, where
do I start with this? So life honestly with my mom in the early years, the very, very early years, was great. At least from memory and what I can kind of, my older brother kind of reminds me of, is it was good for probably the first 3 to 5 years. And then things went downhill pretty quick. Just to sum it up, there's a lot that I could do there, but just to sum it up, there was a lot of alcoholism, drug addiction, abuse of pretty much every kind, rampant in our house. And by house, I mean a few dozen houses over time.
Yeah.
Lots of moving. We had spent time in women's shelter for abused women. We had spent time in the homeless shelter. And eventually, probably about the age of 11, 7th grade. How old are you in 7th grade?
13.
13. Oh, so maybe so I'm a little younger for my class. So maybe I was 12.
12 or 13.
12,
That's-
12
12,
13.
Yeah, 12
okay.
or 13.
Because 14's high school. So
There you go. Okay. I should know this, but I don't. So about 12, 13-ish, we ended up, I grew up with my older brother and 2 younger brothers, and we ended up in children's shelter. And my mom had basically given us up, had decided that she couldn't do it anymore. And there was a lot of drama leading up to that point.
Had you ever been removed from the home?
She gave us up before that could happen. So
Okay.
no.
Okay.
But there were multiple times when we should have. And I would definitely say the system failed us in that way. We kind of floated somewhere between, we didn't have the bruises per se that people would notice, but there were plenty of other things that we had going on. And we always just kind of went right under the radar. We were somewhere, we needed the help. We needed somebody to intervene, and nobody did. And for a lot of years, we went through a lot of things. And So seventh grade year was a really what I describe as by far my toughest year to date. We had gone through a friend's suicide, who was our age at the time, which was very difficult and very unheard of, especially even then, in our group anyway. I had been severely physically abused. I had been sexually abused multiple times by this point, and especially within that year. We were living with, my mom's boyfriend was recently released from prison for, he had been convicted of raping his own 2 teenage daughters. And I am coming of age, getting all my little body parts and growing in that way. And I was somewhere between physically more developed and mentally very much a child.
Yeah.
And so that caused a lot of things. Alcoholism, drug addiction, even to the point of sexual parties and things like that were happening in the house while we were there.
Wow.
It got real bad. At one point, my mom's boyfriend at the time had actually shot at my brother. My older brother and I got into a fight. We lived in a trailer home, and we were blessed to share a room together. And we were fighting over the radio station, and I got punched. I screamed, and the boyfriend, drunk off his ass, had pissed himself. I mean, came in yelling and screaming at my brother, said something to the effect of, "I'm going to kill you," and ran up to the front, grabbed his gun. My brother went out the back door. Thankfully, it was dark, and my brother was able to hide in the field. We lived in the country, and was able to hide in the field, and shots were going off. Myself and one of my younger brothers was still in the house, and so I grabbed him, my younger brother was just catatonic on the bed. I grabbed him, took him back to my room, shoved him under my bed, and I scooted up as far as I could where the bed frame kind of hit my shoulder. And I just begged and pleaded that all of us would make it through the night. Eventually, Mom was out partying. I don't know. Anyway, so she comes back around, and sometime that evening, we get her attention. We all sneak out through my bedroom window, and we take off and we leave. A few weeks later, he comes back around, same boyfriend comes back around and holds my mom at knife point in front of all of us kids, knife at her throat with her on her knees begging to live. And while those were pretty much the worst, I guess, most dramatic moments, it wasn't that far off from reality for us. And so that is really what a lot of our childhood was leading up to that point.
Those are just the memories that stick out the most.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then from there, the next 6 months after that, Mom just really struggled. We always had tons of men coming in and out of our house. She was somewhere between drinking, drugging, and partying, and Al-Anon and AA and NA and all the help type things.
So you had both sides involved in your life.
And yeah. And so it was it was very difficult during that time frame. And then we eventually landed in the youth home. Mom walked us in. What my memory is, Mom walked us in to Department of Human Services, and she went out the back door, and we never saw her again. We didn't even know why we were there.
Oh, wow.
And she just walked out the back door. So we went into youth home waiting for her to get her act together or something. We went back with her when she was still in a homeless shelter. We didn't even have a home to go to. Lived there for a while, got a place, a lot more drama, a lot more stuff, a lot more in and out, whatever. We were dumpster diving. We were living without water and electricity. It was all over the board. And then she left for a summer, the summer between seventh and 8th grade year. And she just left. She just wasn't around. And so my younger brothers are technically my half brothers. They're totally, fully my brothers, but they have their own dad. And so they went and stayed with their dad. They're 5 and 6 years younger than me. So they went and stayed with their dad, and my older brother and I were left in our home. No electricity, no water, no food, and for the summer. And so we started doing whatever we were doing, which, leave young teenagers with a lot of trauma in their background. What kind of trouble are they getting into? So we never actually got in trouble, but we should have.
Right.
And one night mom came home to switch out her clothes or to get something from the house or whatever. My older brother confronted her on the front lawn, and she basically said, if you don't like how I run my house, you can pack your shit and leave. So we did. We packed our shit and we left. And we got turned in. I was 12 at the time because my 13th birthday was again in the children's shelter. So we packed a little bit of stuff that we could carry, and we took off. Eventually, I ended up getting arrested for in need of supervision, which is still crazy to me to this day. I have the ticket at home to prove it. I get arrested for in need of supervision. I was handcuffed and thrown in the back of the car and everything.
God, the system.
Yeah.
System.
It was awful. And I completely went ballistic. I barely even remember, but I just went completely off on my mom, and the cops had to hold me back from her because I was so upset by everything that we had gone through and everything that she had said and done. And I told the cops, I said, go look at our house. Go see what's there. We have no food, no electricity, no water, and now we have an eviction notice on our door. And she's nowhere to be found. Ask any of the neighbors. They don't even know what she looks like.
Wow.
And from that point forward, we never went home. I learned some stuff here recently after her death that she never completed any of the stuff that she was supposed to get us back. She would get to the last step, and then she wouldn't do it. So I lived a life in foster care. I got pregnant at 14, had my child at 15. I raised him. I kept him. I raised him. And initially, the entire time that I was pregnant, I wasn't going to because I did not know how to be a mother. I didn't feel like I had any role model. And literally up until the day that he was born, he was supposed to go with his father. And I didn't have diapers. I didn't have a crib. I didn't have anything for a child. And the day that he was born, there was just nobody who was going to protect that child the same way that I would. And I knew without a doubt that I was going to be the best thing for him. And I do not condone teenage pregnancy. And I really want to make that clear. That is I'm not glamorizing it. I'm not saying that it's good, but in my life, this just happened to be the thing that changed my life.
Do you feel like a big part of that was probably like, you felt like keeping him was the only way to keep what happened, the kind of stuff that happened to you from happening? You know what I mean? Because like the system failed you. So you're like, if I just let him go, I can't guarantee that he's going to go through the things I had to go through.
I would not have articulated that at the time. Yeah. Looking back, subconsciously, I think that's what I was feeling. I just knew when I looked at that innocent child that he needed so much more than I felt like anybody else in the world could give him, and that it was the emotional, the deep-rooted protection that, I imagine that does stem from my lived experiences, but like I said, I couldn't have articulated it at that
14
time.
and 15, kind of a subconscious.
Yeah. So while I was in the hospital at that time, they were still doing 2-3 days. I feel like I'm an old lady at that time.
I know.
But like now people are getting like released from.
Yeah. Within like 8 hours.
Yeah, I know.
Crazy.
So like, wow. Yeah. So yeah, within those couple of days that I was in there, I signed him into foster care. So technically he was a foster child. However, we were a package deal. And that was
because you were still a child.
Because I was still a child. Wow. I did not have to do that, but I made the decision to protect him and to make sure that his needs were met no matter what. So regardless of what I did, regardless of what I went through, regardless of how my life turned out, he was going to be protected.
Yeah.
And so I signed him into foster care, but we were supposed to be a package deal. And as long as my caseworker at the time, my DHS caseworker, I just had his word to go on that as long as I, kept my nose clean, basically, then he would be signed back into my care when I turned 18. And so that's what we did. And, from that point forward, I'm not going to pretend to be this amazing mom, because I certainly made a lot of missteps and a lot of things that I would have changed. But I really overall got myself going together. During this entire time, no contact with my mom. We had been on again, off again relationship, but really she was never good enough to be around. And that sounds horrible, but she was never healthy enough for me to be around. In my adult life, while I kept getting and making my life better, my mom's mental illness, and I still am not clear on what diagnoses were real. She's told me so many. I believe quite a few, but I don't really know. But her mental health just declined to such a point that really none of us were talking to her. None of myself or my siblings were talking to her too much when she died. And I personally had not talked, texted, called, emailed, Facebook friended, any kind of contact with her in 10 years when she passed away.
Wow.
What's even more interesting is I'm a huge believer in therapy. I love therapy.
Yes.
I think everybody should do therapy.
Yes.
I think there is absolutely nothing wrong with therapy. If you have the chance,
So
do
good.
it. Yes.
Yes.
Find the right person.
Yes. Shop around.
Not all therapists are created
No,
equal.
That's right.
Please do your homework. But I had been going to therapy, and I really knew, especially I'd become an empty nester at this time.
Yes.
And just really felt like it was time to get my shit together. I am tired of what was, and I'm ready to be what I am now. Plus, I have to figure out who the hell am I?
Right.
I mean, I'd
Yeah.
never been an adult without a child to take care of.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
who am I at this point?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our lives are so parallel. It's wild. It's wild. Yeah. Sorry.
And so I had been going to therapy and trying to solve some of those things, and everything kept coming back to this mama issue, right? I got a lot of women have daddy issues. No, I got mama issues.
Yeah.
And after probably 2 years, maybe, I forgave my mom. And it was so strange. So I don't know. This person is in Mason City, so I don't know if she'll hear this or not. But I was I'd met somebody new in some of the work stuff that we do, and we went to lunch together. We felt a connection, and we went to lunch together to talk about some things, and we were talking about how much there are needs with families that are not just like the laundry detergent is going to solve it. Like we always make these care packages with the soap and the laundry detergent and all of this. And I'm like, you know how many times I have done these care packages in my career of working in basically social work and working with families and youth in need. And I'm so tired of people thinking that sending home that laundry detergent is going to solve the problems. Or even, and I know that they don't think that, but that's where they stop thinking about it, right? And it's like, in my house, we didn't have water. What am I going to do with that laundry detergent, right? Well, just go down to the laundromat. Well,
You have to have money for that.
do you know that even a quarter was a big deal in our house? We were dumpster divers.
Right.
Do you know that my mom's car sat in the apartment parking lot for over almost a year, because I don't think we lived there more than a year, but almost a year with a flat tire. And then how did it start? I think it was that she didn't have insurance because she couldn't afford it, right? Car insurance. And then it got a flat tire. So then she could get the insurance, but she couldn't pay for the flat. She paid for the flat. She didn't have enough for it's not that simple. Living in poverty is not just a here you go, now things are better. And I remember having this conversation, and it dawned on me my whole life. I've been thinking about my mom as though I can just give her laundry detergent and she would be better. I was just as guilty of that. And I realized she didn't have those other resources. Now, of course, I'm speaking, what's the word I'm looking for? Analogies, right? It's just an analogy. But I remember thinking about her life and all the crap she had been through. She had been severely sexually abused for years and years and years by her police chief stepfather, police chief, stepfather.
Right?
Right?
What could you possibly go to in that situation?
Yeah.
Wow.
While my mom and my aunt swore for years that never happened. And the alcoholism and the drug addiction that runs in my family tree is insane. And all of the other traumas that my mom had been through. Now I don't know truly what's real and what's not real, but something happened.
Yeah.
And I know that. And here I am wanting to give my mom laundry detergent to make it better when she has no other resources to make that matter. And it was such a pivotal moment in my head. 8 days before my mom died, I forgave her. 8 days. And so then my mom died. And a lot of people tell me today, like, well, at least you had those 8 days. At least you had some closure, at least. And I think, I don't know what words I can say on here.
You can say whatever you want.
What the fuck is my life going to be? Is it going to be this forever? Every time that I close one chapter, another worse one opens. It's this constant, no matter how
Can
much.
never get ahead.
Never.
Can never get ahead. Yeah.
And then the added pressure of now I'm the mama figure amongst me and my siblings because I'm the girl.
The only girl,
The
right?
only girl.
Mm-hmm.
And
the only one that got their life together
Yes.
because of your baby boy.
yes.
Yeah.
And so now that addiction is all throughout my siblings, my brothers, other than myself. I don't know how I escaped it. I honestly don't. There are days I wish I was a drug addict or alcoholic so that I could get away from the crap I deal with on the daily.
Yeah.
And so here I am.
What does the forgiveness look like? And I ask that because I'm listening to you right now, and I haven't really shared about my life with my parents other than just in fleeting moments, but our lives are very parallel in a lot of ways. Yours is on the more extreme side, but I'm not short behind that. I was also spent some time in a group home, and I have a lot of what I thought was resolved issues with my mom. I don't have daddy issues because he's never been around and I could give a shit. But I do with my mom. And I thought that I had kind of forgiven her and put it to bed until this happened with Ethan. And the trauma that I'm reliving right now, the anger I have, what does it look like? And do you have to do it over and over again?
I have no answers for you. So the one thing that I learned about forgiveness, and I'm not even sure, I believe that I fully forgave her. Only time is going to tell what that's going to look like in years. But for a year or two ahead of that, I thought, I've forgiven her. Like, I don't expect her to change. I'm not going to accept her back in my life, but I have accepted that she is who she is and she will always be that. So in my mind, I kept telling myself, I've forgiven her. The only thing that I can say about forgiveness is the weight that was lifted. Mm-hmm. And I remember, it's so funny, in my therapist's office, she had this picture on the wall. And every time I would talk to her, I would stare at this picture. And it was like I don't know, Aztec. I don't know. It was something from, primitive days. But, and there was what looked to be like this big bag of something that had been left on the ground behind these walkers. And, I remember feeling that when I forgave my mom. And that's all I can describe it as, is it just felt like I had set it down. It was not mine to carry anymore. And I had to move on. And that I was ready, really, truly, like, not being held back anymore. Like, there was this distinct difference between what was and what's going to be. And my acceptance of, I am not that. I am, that's not going to happen anymore. I'm not going to allow that, bag of garbage to weigh me down. And it was this really, now what I can say is, this is going to be probably the coldest thing that somebody can say. But when my mom passed, it truly was a relief for all of us, because no more damage could be done. And I feel guilty saying that. I feel like a horrible, awful person for saying that. But because of that, I think that I can leave that luggage behind. I think I can leave that bag of garbage behind. I have new garbage. Lucky me. But
do you think that, I mean, it's my belief that when we die, that we're made whole and perfect. My stepdad, the man who raised me, was a terrible man. And he did a lot of terrible things to me and to my sister. And a long time ago, I also set that bag down. And I realized that he was not born that way. It was things that he had endured. And I felt too relieved when he died. And I felt guilty about that. But I also believe that when we are born, I don't want to say born again, or when we're made new and whole, that they too are relieved for us. Do you think that? Do you think your mom, in her right mind, in her whole self, can look at you and say, I'm relieved for you too?
I hope so. I hope so. My mom was very much a Christian and very much believed in her faith and the Lord. And I too am. This year has been a struggle. I have a lot of shame this year, and that's a whole piece of the conversation. But what was made so apparent after my mom's death and cleaning through her stuff and, finding personal journals or prayer books or it was so evident how broken she was for so long. And I think she knew that she was hurting us the whole time. And I don't think that she knew how to be different. And so I believe that the Lord has such amazingness that I cannot understand. And so I'm hopeful that what you said is true. As mankind and my flaws as a human, I have a tough time seeing that. But after reading some of her stuff and knowing how broken she was and how much she pled with God to relieve her children of their pain and suffering, I hope so. I really hope so.
That has got to be so eye-opening and hard. I know, like with my sister, like I saw her struggle, and I knew that her brain was broken and that she was a prisoner of her brain and of her trauma. And I think that's the only anger that I have left, is that this world did that to her, and that the system failed, and that she never could really experience the beautiful things in life. And that makes me angry. It makes me angry with God. It makes me angry with the world. But it's also comforting to know that, like, that's not really who they are. They don't mean to do those things. And in the moment, it's so hard to see anything other than a monster in front of you. But when you reach this moment of reason where they're human again and they're humanized, and to stumble across actual written words from that has got to be, I mean, I'm just overwhelmed right now with emotion thinking about how difficult that must have been to pick those up, knowing that these broken hands, this broken heart was pleading on paper for her own salvation. And as her daughter, to read that has got to be so much to digest.
I really haven't had the space or the opportunity to talk about it, and even to share this in any way. My brothers are tough cookies and they either don't want to hear it or push it aside. My aunt, my mom's sister, only wants to move forward and not really look back. And this prayer, this one particular prayer that she wrote, I come back to and I read it over and over. And it's interesting what you just said, Tiff, because on the one hand, I'm so upset, so angry with this world, and so angry at myself that I couldn't see that before. And then I spent so many years, 4 decades, hating this woman for all that she had done to me, when she was hating herself at the same time. It's hard. It's hard to look back and think about how I could have done it differently, what I would have said. And yet I can't do that.
Yeah.
But I can't not do that.
I think it's part of it, right?
Yeah, it seems like it. And yeah.
What was your mom's name?
Pat. She went by Patty.
That's my mom's name. Dead serious.
You've got to be kidding me.
I'm dead serious.
We need to lay out our life on paper.
I'm pretty sure we're the same person.
I think so. You're funnier. You're cuter.
No way. Come on.
But
wow. Yeah, Patricia. That's my mom's name. Weird.
yeah. What's her middle name?
Anne?
Clotine.
Clotine?
Mm-hmm.
That would have been wild, huh?
Oh my, for real. If that, oh wow. Could you imagine?
I left.
Clotine?
It was two Clotines.
I've never
I'd have
heard
left.
that.
I would have got right up and just walked out of here.
Yeah. Oh, you don't even know the half of it.
Oh yeah.
Oh my.
Oh wow.
I have like multiple thoughts.
Yeah, talk to us. Break this up.
Break this up a little bit. It's getting too serious.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to take it away from serious, but one thing like we talked about recently, and I can't remember if we talked about it on the show or if it was just in the random stuff we talk about randomly otherwise, but the whole like not caring about trivial things. You know, we talked about like how we're going through this horrible thing, and when you hear people like really just like upset about things that just don't seem to matter, and you're just like, who gives a shit? You know what I mean? About your trivial, ridiculous shit. like I'm going through this horrible thing that you don't even possibly understand. How lucky are you to not have these problems that I have? And it's a bit humbling for me to realize that just keeps trickling down from person to person, where after hearing your story, part of me feels like a lot of my shit seems pretty trivial. At the same time, there's the whole, like the laundry detergent thing. Like, I don't have water. What would I need laundry detergent for? And it's like, it made me think of that, us like thinking about the whole trivial thing. And then I also had to think about how, like, people were saying to you, like, oh, you had 8 days. You didn't. You didn't. You had no days. And I know when people say that kind of stuff, I know what they mean. And I try not to fault people for that, but like, especially when it's fresh to hear, you know what I mean? Like, I have like the hardest time with, for me, like, that seems like a natural progression of your grief evolving, where you're able to like cherish memories and be like, well, I had this time, I had this happen, and I'm lucky I had this. But for me, I have a hard time with that, because when I think of good things with my mom, which I had many, many years, it just reminds me I don't have them anymore. And I'm hoping I'll get past that at some point. But then again, it's humbling in the fact that you don't have that. You don't have like good memories. You don't.
I have some.
Right. And like you said early on, but there's just so much shadow there. And also for me, the last 2-3 years of my life with my mother resemble much more of your story than most of my story. The alcohol changed everything. And part of me is like, you had people be like, maybe there was no turning around for her, and that was God or whatever's life's way of not letting things get that bad. And I have a hard time being like, fuck that. You know what I mean? Like, it definitely made me think a lot. I definitely appreciate you being willing to be so honest about your stuff, with somebody you just met.
Yeah.
Well, and you just said something that you said a whole lot there that I would love to respond to. I think with the, first of all, the trivial thing, did anybody else get so pissed that life was moving, that people were going shopping, getting their groceries like the day after? And like, how do you, like, why is the world not stopping? Yeah. And regardless of what shit, any of us went through, or the good or the bad memories or whatever, that moment time stands still, right? And the fog
is real.
It is so real. And I do think that, I on the one hand, I think things happen for a reason, and I really want to believe that. And I always have believed that. But then I think I've come to this new realization of, and I don't even know that I fully am accepting of it yet, but shit just doesn't make sense sometimes. Shit is just fucked up because it's fucked up. And who is that? Is that the devil? Is that the world? Is that mankind? Is that...
Yeah. And I think if you sit there and you try to dissect it and you try to put a label on it or point it in any direction, like, oh, this is the devil attacking you, or this is spiritual warfare, it'll drive you crazy. I've never been able to really articulate it in the way that you just did, that like sometimes shit is just fucked.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is just absolutely fucked, and there is no reason within our own understanding.
It kind of drives me crazy on both ends. Mm-hmm. For me, it's like, because
I
I'm
need to make
struggling.
sense of it.
Because I'm struggling. I grew up with faith, and I'm very much struggling with it anymore. I can't even really tell you what I think anymore. But on the one hand, it's like, okay, if this is all part of some plan, or, you know what I mean? Like, what kind of fucking plan is this? And if it's the opposite of that, if it is all just existence is just coincidental, are we really that fucking unlucky?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's just the cards we drew. And to go even one further, that's just the card you drew. You seem like a really nice fucking lady. I'm a little pissed off about it.
I'd like to think I am. Thank you,
know what
for
I mean?
being
Like,
offended
what?
for me.
What the fuck, world? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so it's like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't kind of
Right.
situation. It's like none of it seems real fucking fair, no matter which way you slice it.
Right.
So
So I think there are those of us, and I'll be honest, I'm kind of where you are, where I'm teetering on the nah, side of things.
I sure would fucking like to be able to feel like it, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I really
Right.
would.
I know.
I really would.
But I think there are those of us that do grasp at the fact that, like, this cannot all be for nothing. There is no way that Yolanda, as a young girl, was exposed to the things she was exposed to, her body beaten and abused, abandoned, hungry, and unloved for nothing. I cannot believe that, because
But isn't it super hard to wonder what the something is?
Oh yeah. Oh yes. It is. It is. I'm grappling with that. I am. You have to. As a child, I think I asked myself many times in the scary dark, alone and abused, why is this happening to me? And I'm asking myself the same question as an adult. And I know we can forgive those who did those things to us, at some point. Justin, I know you'll get to a point where you will have forgiven your mom. And I hope that I can re-forgive or find it in myself again, or, get where you are, Yolanda. But sometimes I'm not sure that I can forgive the creator of this disgusting chess match that I happen to be in the middle of.
That's been the hardest part for me this year. I don't know where I am. I don't know what does this whole life mean?
Mm-hmm.
Why forgive anybody ever? Why move forward? Why wake up the next day?
I think people would say it's for you.
They have a whole bunch of shit they'd say, wouldn't they?
Right. Yeah. The experts in forgiveness would say, well, forgiveness isn't for them, it's for you. But then why do you take it from me? Or, you know what I'm saying?
And that's really where I'm at is I've done a lot of hard work to get to where I was March 11th.
Mm-hmm.
Does that math add up? March 8th, March 9th, early March.
It's in there. Yeah.
And then March 17th. Not only did my mom die, but then I'm left with the destruction behind it. And I haven't even, and we don't have enough time for this, but I haven't even talked about some of the nasty things that I learned about my mom, the nasty things that she thought about her children. I haven't even talked about the disaster that I'm trying to clean up and hold myself together. I haven't even been able to grieve.
Right.
Because I'm holding my brothers together.
Right.
And
you're on the business side of it right now too. That's the early times where it's just, it's all business and not. And I was thinking about this today. I was thinking about you coming on the show, and I was thinking about where I was at the first 3 months. And I did not realize until the last few days how still foggy I was and numb and dealing with the business side of it. Maybe it's not death certificates and it's not, moving the apartment or cleaning the things up or whatever, but there's a lot of business involved when it's like, I need to reach out to this person. I need to care for others. win. And that's the greatest distraction, but also because I don't think probably at that time, and maybe this is where you are, that I was able to really feel it. And sometimes I'm jealous that I'm not there still because I'm in it now.
That's interesting. That's really interesting because I'm actually upset that I can't feel it right now.
Yeah.
I feel guilty. So I also have this weird thing of I feel like not only did I forgive my mom, but I had gone through grief.
Yes, I was going to ask you that.
Yes, I had already gone through grief in those 10 years of accepting that my mom is never going to be what I need. And therefore, I had to grieve the loss of my mom to get there. So I grieved her, and her death was just a finality. It was just the next thing, right? And to some extent, I feel like that has placed me in this weird thing of like, I can't have the emotions. I sit down and tonight, I mean, it's probably one of 3 times that I've shed any tears at all over my mom. I went numb for at least a good solid 6 weeks. I'm a crier. I cry. Anybody who knows me knows I cry. And I'll cry at TV shows, the good ones, the funny ones, the romantic ones. I cry at all of them, right? And nothing would make me cry for 6 weeks. And I was so numb. And even now, I finally put myself in a position, was it last weekend or the weekend before, I had cleaned up the bills, boxed those up in a way that needed to be, her bills and what needed to be there. And then I have the stuff that I need to deal with right now, the probate and the death certificates and all that. Then I had the pictures and the journals and the prayers and all of her self-reflection and her cards for birthdays and things from her friends. And I have all this memorabilia stuff, high school report cards, all this stuff that I needed to go through. And I finally went through it last weekend or the weekend before. And with that need, I needed to release it. I'm just trying to get it. And nope, that was just business too. Just got to put this together. Just got to organize it. Just got to put it all together. And I cannot do it. And I'm mad at myself for it. I am confused by it.
Yeah.
And I'm scared to death of when it's going to come.
And how it will manifest.
What am I going to destroy when it comes?
Wow.
How am I going to self-destruct? And so, yeah.
That's a biggie. That is some heavy. It's been a minute since I just have goosebumps all over. That's just a lot. Holy cow.
It's interesting. When we have people on, it always just, when you parallel your stories to other people's, it always makes you think of things maybe you haven't thought of. And like when you said, you had 10 years to realize that your mom wasn't going to be what you needed her to be. Do you feel like there was a moment at all during that 10 years when you realized that? Was it when you forgave her that day, or was it just a gradual and you realized it one day, at some point it was just, that's how it was?
I think it's a combination of all of the above. I think, over the years, her and I never really connected. And you can read in her journals that I was her least favorite child. So that was really fun.
Oh.
Yeah. Wow. Her and I never connected. We always struggled. So I think at some level, I always knew. And then the off and on relationship that we had through my teenage years and my early adult years. And it was always this kind of fantasy that my mom would get better one day. And that one day we would be able to move forward. And I think when I finally, the last conversation we had, the reason we had that conversation, that's a whole story. Basically, I had thought I had forgiven her at one point, and then the very next day she flipped and did something again. And I just thought it's never going to go away. And I finally decided I had to cut it off. Right. So she was too toxic for me. So then began this 10-year process. And the whole time in the beginning, I'm angry, and then I'm sad, and then I'm desperate for connection. And yet I wouldn't take the action because I knew it wasn't going to happen. And so I think it was that grieving of accepting where you're at and what's going on. And then it was the laundry detergent day, really, when I thought, I've closed this chapter. I mean, I had forgiven her, and I have fully accepted she's never going to be a part of my life again. Like, it did not matter if she lived another 30 years. She was never going to be a part of my life.
Right.
The reason I ask is, like, I had 30 years of, I couldn't have asked for a better mom. I mean, really, like, and then for the last 5, it was very different. And, I spent, especially the last couple, like, I was the only one who knew there was a problem, the only one that addressed that there was a problem and that something needed to change. Everyone else was very enabling. So I spent a couple years of just like, she's going to get better.
Denial.
We're going to get her into treatment. You know, she would talk about wanting to go to treatment, and I would just think about, like, that mom I had before. And there was even a year and a half where I got her to leave her husband, who was the source of all of this. But she just kept drinking and was lonely, and he had a hold of her still, and she went back, and she was gone within a year when she went back there. And I still don't think a year later I've fully grasped that what you just said is that now that she's gone, that's not an option. And I'm never gonna
Get the healthy Deneen. Right.
The finality.
And I think that's the part that sucks the most. Is that I couldn't, and she couldn't get past it, and we couldn't. It's weird how the similarities and the huge differences between the two, how for you it was a decade, and for me it was such a short amount of time. And it's hard, like you said, you're angry. I'm angry too. Like, I see all these people every day that don't, as harsh as it fucking sounds, I don't care, that don't deserve to be walking around.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that just got a hold of her and took her so fucking fast. And like, the person I thought was the strongest person in the world my whole life just blew her away, turned her into someone else, and then took her. And I'm not ready to even, I haven't dealt with it. I haven't dealt with the fact that, I don't know. I think I'm mad too.
Yeah. Addiction is such a robber of, it's just a thief, and it takes them before it takes them. We've talked about that. And so I don't know if the process for you is addressing the monster that is that disease. If it is really facing that head on. I don't even know what that looks like, Justin. I don't even know how you do it. I don't know.
that's one of the pieces also that I think is, so I've never had anybody in my life die, ever,
Oh, wow.
ever. And I was going to share this with you one day, and then we got to talking about something else. But I remember I have a very distinct memory of you coming to my house like a week before Ethan went in for surgery, and you talking about some of the possibilities. And we were kind of talking about it's probably going to be okay, but it is a little dangerous. And I remember I voice noted you a couple times after that. And I think we were talking about grief and how I thought I was saying the right things and doing the right things for you and in that, and like giving you this advice. And I remember one of your voice notes back is like, yeah, I know the grief and whatever. And now looking back on it, one of the things that I know I'm not making sense, it's because I'm processing so much at once, but it's more clear to me now than ever that it's so incredibly unique. Every situation and every person. And I think you could probably attest to this much better than I can, having lost your sister and your son and other people in your life, how different each one of those things are, and the advice people want to give, and the people you have to console in the process, or the things you have to listen to when, like a lot of people wanted to say, oh, your mom loved you. And, she was such a good person. And I'm just like, your experience was not mine. And I say all of that to say it's so hard, because now I really feel like, well, fuck me. How am I supposed to help anybody at this point with grief? Because it's so different for everybody. And I never wanted anybody to say, I'm sorry for your loss. Like, that pissed me off more than anything else. Screw you. I'm relieved. And
oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And not being able to say that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what am I going to say to my mom's friends?
Dang.
And so I say that to say, all I want right now is a listening ear sometimes, a distraction sometimes, somebody that I can call and just unleash, right? And so all I'm going to say to you right now is, if you ever need that and you want to just say all the bad things and whatever, scream and cuss, and
because I will say the only thing that brings me any amount of comfort is sitting in it with others who are also sitting in it. I don't want to share vulnerable darkness with people who cannot understand. I don't want to give that to them, first of all. I don't want them to try to rationalize it. I don't want them to fix it. I don't want them to say the wrong thing. I don't want, I don't want that. And the greatest comfort for me is to communicate with others who are in the same boat. Even though it is unique in its own way, there are a lot of boxes that are checked that we all are feeling too. Where you can say, oh yeah, right now I'm, blah, blah, blah. And then that moment where your eyebrows raised and you're like, oh yeah, me too, and it's almost comical in a way sometimes. Like when I have a conversation with somebody, or when we have guests in here, or, even when we talk, and we're just like, yeah, this is what's going on right now. And like how it's so relatable. And that's the greatest comfort for me, is to surround myself with other sad people.
Misery loves company.
Yeah,
Here we are.
And I feel like that's the one time that it's okay to lean on others that are in that heavy,
Well, I think that's like me and you specifically, like we know there's no fixing it. So it's like we just acknowledge each other, and
yeah.
It's, the whole thing you're saying about how everyone's got that, like, oh, you're, they want to tell you all the stuff they think you want to hear, especially right then and there. And it's like, it's so strange that I haven't really even thought about this or articulated this ever until just this moment. It made me think of it. But I remember, like, through her visitation, I was just glued to her casket for the whole 2 hours. The whole visitation was just people coming up and talking to me because there was no getting to her without going through me. And I just remember, like, so many times for those couple of years, like, reaching out to people I didn't even know from her, her childhood or her like, just anybody, like, and just be like, Mom's not doing good, and she doesn't think anybody gives a shit, and she needs people to, like, prove to her that they do, because she thinks that this monster she lives with is the only one who cares about her. And people would, I'll reach out, I'll take her to lunch, this and that. No one ever did. And it was so hard for me to, like,
Look at them.
Stand over my mom's casket, having these people be like, what happened?
Oh, gosh. Wow.
Your mom was such a great lady and seemed to have it all together. What happened? And I'm like, fuck you. To the point that I'm like, what are you even fucking doing here? It's a little late now. And it's just like,
where were you?
Yeah.
Where were you when you could have done something?
And I think I'm still mad about, like, all that. And it's like, between that, it's just like, I would have so much rather had all these people not look me in the eye and tell me how much they were going to be there for me for the rest of my life when they knew they were full of shit. Because I can count on one hand the people that check on me on a regular basis. And maybe part of that's okay. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But
it's more of the same. They didn't check on her. They're not checking on you. It's just...
we're so sad now. What a horrible thing that's happened here.
Yeah.
And now we'll go on. We'll go have dinner with our family who's still fucking alive. Whoops. That must suck for you. What do you do with that? Because you sure can't stand there and say that to him.
No.
How inappropriate would that be?
I'm at, like, a point where I feel so unhinged in the way that I want to say it. I want to say those things. Like, I'm struggling with these close relationships of people I've been doing life with for 9-10 years. The children that they have, a lot of them I had in my care as a child care provider, and I sewed into those kids. I still do. And I sit around a campfire and I listen to them talk about their kids. And I listen to them. And no one asked me about mine. Like this great big thing didn't happen to me. And I want to say, what the fuck? Are we just going to pretend that my child is gone? Are we going to pretend that I'm not dying inside? We don't have to stay in the moment, but I want to be acknowledged. And I want my son's name to be spoken.
And we sure as fuck don't want to have to tell anybody to do it.
Well, and I'm getting closer and closer to just saying it.
And it's funny how it all boils down to us being considerate of their feelings.
Yeah. I'm tired of taking care of others because I really need to be taken care of. I need to be checked on. I need to be motivated. I need a cheerleader. I need a drill sergeant. I need to talk about my child. And not have to worry about how it makes you feel. Yeah. Whew. They just keep getting heavier as the season is going on. I really appreciate both of your vulnerability here in this space. And I hope that as we bring in people, that we are not talking about more of the same, but showing it in its own uniqueness and the complexities of grief and the unresolved trauma from the past. And, our intention with this show is to really lift the veil on what it's really like in real time, and even a year out, or nearly a year for me and 3 months for Yolanda. It's all still just real and raw. I think it will be that way for some time.
Seems that way.
I think collectively we could agree we're all very angry tonight. And Joe's out there with a shield, and we're behind bulletproof glass because, he's not trying to get, the back end of this, but no, it's great. Yeah.
I want to say, Tiff, that this brainchild of yours, I did not appreciate. I did not have the capacity to understand how to appreciate it. And we were talking a couple weeks ago, and you were talking about how you just didn't want something perfectly packaged and polished. And as I started listening to some of the podcast and reflecting on what do I really feel like, this is the first space that has allowed me to just say it and to just feel it, and that I don't have to apologize for it, that I don't have to ask for grace and not get it.
And you don't have to take care of anyone but yourself.
And I don't have to take care of anyone. I'm still learning that one.
Yeah.
But in this moment.
Yeah. In this moment. Yeah.
So I really appreciate this. And I really encourage you to keep it going because we need it.
Yeah. Would you come back again?
I would come back again.
Yeah. I'd love to.
Maybe with a baseball bat.
I'd like to do a follow-up.
Old car outside ready to beat the hell out of.
See, I'm all about setting fires. I want to set everything on fire. So you beat it up. I'll set it on fire. What do you want to do, Justin?
Think about it.
Man, he's got so much anger. He's got to plot it out.
Just make fun of it. Say mean, clever things about it.
Stupid car.
Run off your audience members.
Yeah, just say inappropriate things to it. Make it question everything it ever thought.
Yeah.
We're talking about a car. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, you're right. I don't know. You lost me there, but
The metaphors got a little cloudy there for me.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Yolanda,
Thank you for inviting me.
for coming in and just really sharing your life and your heart. And I really feel like this is the reason we get in here. And in every episode, I learn something, and it puts things into perspective, and I see myself in others. I see myself in Justin. I see myself in you. I'm just learning so much, and I'm just really grateful for those of you that will come in and share and teach.
I agree. It's amazing to me how every new story I hear makes me realize things about my own that I somehow didn't notice.
Mm-hmm.
Which hopefully in the long run will be helpful,
Yeah. Yep. It's a marathon.
Never really been into running myself.
Yeah, you don't strike me as a runner.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, had to get one in there, didn't you? Every time I see someone running down the street, I'm like, who is chasing that guy?
Sweatpants are hot, so let me get you some spandex and see what you got.
It is awful. Like I said, I look remarkably well in
You
spandex.
do. I have seen you in spandex. It's pretty great.
For a larger fella.
As always, guys, we appreciate you, and we hope this is doing something for you. It's doing something for us. So until we meet again.
Indeed. Hang in there, guys.